All right. So we have a few updates for you today. Well, first of all, welcome to the noon briefing. Let me start with a little bit of housekeeping. As Stéphane mentioned last week, this will be our last scheduled noon briefing for this year, unless we need to change our plans. We will post, in the coming days, we will post updates online every day on our website, and our office will be staffed every day, except, of course, on the two holidays, December 21st and January 1st. So you know where to find us. We'll be in the office no matter what, and you know how to reach us also. On our phones by email. On January 2nd, there will be a press conference by the Permanent Mission of Algeria. Here, the permanent representative, Ambassador Amar Bendjama, will be here to discuss the Security Council's program of work for January, as Algeria will be president of the Security Council in January. Now, let me turn to the situation, the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. Tom Fletcher, our Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, said today in a statement that the sustained intensity of violence means there is nowhere safe for civilians in Gaza. Schools, hospitals, and civilian infrastructure have been reduced to rubble, he said. On the ground, our partners report that yesterday, increased fighting by Israeli forces in North Gaza, particularly in western Beit Hanun, has forced many people, mostly women and children, into displacement. Still, in North Gaza, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that direct gunfire was reported on Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, as bombing around the compound continued. Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the World Health Organization, said that the reports of bombardment near Kamal Adwan Hospital and orders to evacuate the hospital are deeply worrisome, adding that the hospital has been in the middle of fighting for too long and the lives of patients are at risk. OCHA reiterates that civilians and civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, must be protected. Despite the active fighting and Israeli access restrictions to North Gaza Governorate, OCHA said that two UN-led humanitarian missions successfully managed to enter the besieged areas in North Gaza on December 20th. The first mission reached Beit Hanun and delivered food and bottled water to people. The second mission, also over the weekend, this time led by WHO, went to Kamal Adwan Hospital to deliver 5,000 liters of fuel, 100 blood units, and transferred also 8 patients and 13 companions to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. These were the only 2 missions approved out of the 8 missions requested by the UN to access North Gaza between 18 and 22nd of December. During these missions, people remained in those areas people remaining in those areas expressed fears that a heavier attack could follow the aid delivery, as had happened in previous cases. In Gaza Governorate, our humanitarian colleagues report that today, the Israeli authorities issued another evacuation order for part of Ash-Shujaiye and Tarkman neighborhoods in West Gaza, exposing civilians to further hostilities and depriving them of access to essential services. The impacted areas cover an estimated 1 square kilometer. Our partners are closely monitoring the situation in these areas, and they will provide further updates on forced displacement. For its part, the World Food Programme is telling us that on 22 December, so yesterday, a joint UN convoy of 66 trucks departed the Kerem Shalom crossing via the Philadelphia corridor to deliver food and non-food items to central Gaza. This was the first time the WFP used this route, recently approved as an alternative to the main Salah el-Din route. WFP has consistently called on all parties to ensure the safe passage of aid, as have we. It has also engaged with communities and families residing along the convoy route to secure their cooperation. But yesterday, despite assurances from Israeli authorities that safety conditions would be in place, an airstrike occurred nearby. The first 35 trucks of the convoy proceeded to their destination, reaching the warehouse without losses. However, the second half of the convoy was delayed by the IDF. News of the convoy's movement spread, exposing them to looting along the route. Ultimately, out of the 66 trucks, only 43 successfully reached the warehouse, while the remaining 23 were lost to looting. This and all of these details, we share all of these details to showcase another example of why we continue to stress the need for the safe, unimpeded passage of assistance to reach populations that need it the most. Now, turning to Syria, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that fuel shortages are affecting essential activities in parts of the country. Oops, apologies for this. In Aleppo Governorate, for instance, 6 public hospitals and 60 primary health centers are operating only partially due to fuel and power shortages. Partners also report that damage to bridge infrastructure connecting Damascus to other key parts of the country is impacting the logistics chain. Despite the challenges, we and our partners continue to support the response as security permits. We are distributing food assistance, including bread, ready-to-eat rations, hot meals, and food baskets. In northwest Syria, partners have also started supporting farmers, including with cash grants. Nutrition interventions are ongoing across the country. Since December 2nd, at least 63 cases of wasting and 18 malnutrition cases have been identified among children, and they were admitted for treatment. In northeast Syria, the situation remains dire for the 40,000 people staying in 215 emergency collective centers. The security situation is volatile and hampering humanitarian operations. However, partners have been able to distribute winter kits, blankets, and winter clothes, but more, as you can imagine, is needed, and there's also a critical need for additional winter support for host communities. Partners have not been able to access Manbij and Kobani for 2 weeks due to insecurity in this area. Meanwhile, partners reported Israeli airstrikes in Latakia as well as incursions in southern governorates with civilian infrastructure damaged. And now, another update on Syria. Robert Petit, the head of the International, Impartial, and Independent Mechanism for Syria, has concluded a visit to Damascus. This, and it's important to note, is the first time that the mechanism was authorized to enter Syria since it was established in 2016 by the General Assembly. It is mandated to assist in the investigation and prosecution of individuals responsible for committing the most serious international crimes in Syria since March 2011. During the mission, Mr. Petit visited a site of significant interest related to alleged atrocity crimes. He also met with representatives of the caretaker authorities and with a number of Syrians impacted by the crimes committed during the past decade. Mr. Petit highlighted the urgency of preserving the evidence before it is lost forever, and there is a full statement on this available on their website. Now turning to Lebanon. Today, Lieutenant General Aroldo Lazaro, the force commander of the UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, UNIFIL, held discussions with Najib Mikati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, and also with the armed forces, the Lebanese Armed Forces Commander, General Joseph Aoun. This took place in southern Lebanon. They visited the village of Kiam, from which the IDF recently withdrew, and where Lebanese armed forces deployed with UNIFIL support. Our peacekeeping mission in Lebanon strongly urges accelerated progress in the IDF's withdrawal from South Lebanon and the Lebanese army's deployment there. UNIFIL also calls on all actors to cease and refrain from violations of Security Council Resolution 1701 and any actions that could jeopardize the fragile stability that currently prevails. Now, just a few more updates. I have one Closer to us geographically in Haiti, our UN political office in the country, BNU, as well as the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, have published an investigation report today which looks at the wave of crimes committed by the Wharf Jeremy gang in Port-au-Prince earlier this month. According to the report, between 6 and 11 December, more than 207 people, 134 men and 73 women were executed there. Most of them were elderly individuals who were accused of practicing voodoo and also accused of causing the gang leader's child's disease. Other victims included people who tried to flee the area or who were suspected of having leaked information about these crimes to local media in Haiti. In a statement, Maria Isabel Salvador, our special representative in Haiti, called for accountability. She also stressed that these crimes touch the very foundation of Haitian society, targeting the most vulnerable populations. Since the beginning of the year, BNU and OHCHR have recorded more than 5,350 people killed and more than 2,100 people injured as a direct result of violence in the country. The full statement and also the full report are both available online. Now, turning to Myanmar, our humanitarian colleagues warn that the security situation in Rakhine is rapidly worsening, with escalating conflict between the Myanmar Armed Forces and Arakan Army in several townships in southern Rakhine. Since November of last year, the conflict has persisted and is now impacting 16 out of 17 townships where people are facing severe humanitarian challenges, including severely limited access to essential services. According to partners, the ongoing conflict has driven an estimated 360,000 people out of their homes in Rakhine and in neighboring Paletwa Township in southern Chin, bringing the total number of displaced in Rakhine to nearly 570,000. Our humanitarian colleagues note that the escalating conflict in Rakhine is part of a broader crisis unfolding in multiple regions and states across Myanmar, including the northwest and also the southeast, displacing more than 3.5 million people, a staggering increase of 1.5 million men, women, and children compared to a year ago. We reiterate our call on all parties to the conflict to uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law, to ensure the protection of civilians, humanitarian workers, and supplies, and to guarantee unimpeded humanitarian access. And I am delighted, that's going to be the last note for today, delighted to read into the record a personal announcement that we shared with you earlier today. The Secretary General is appointing Elinor Jane Britt Hammarskjöld of Sweden as Under Secretary General for Legal Affairs and United Nations Legal Council. Ms. Hammarskjöld succeeds Miguel de Serpa Soares of Portugal, to whom the Secretary General is deeply grateful for his dedicated service and long-standing commitment. He also thanks Stephen Matias, Assistant Secretary General for Legal Affairs, who will continue as acting Chief for Legal Affairs until Ms. Hammarskjöld arrives. Ms. Hammarskjöld currently serves as Director General for Legal Affairs in the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and she is also the head of the legal department. She has over 30 years of experience in security policy, international law, human rights, and treaty law, and we welcome her to the United Nations. And that is it for me today. Yes, Edie.
A couple of follow-ups. Thanks, Stephanie. First, on your last announcement,
Yes.
I have to ask, is Ms. Hammarskjöld related to Dag Hammarskjöld, the former Secretary General, in any way?
I asked this morning. I was told she is a distant relative. I'm not sure exactly how, but I was told there's a certain family link there.
Okay.
I will double check though to make sure that this is absolutely the case.
It isn't exactly a common name.
It's exactly.
On the visit of the head of the International Investigative Mechanism to Syria, did he get a green light from the current authorities in Syria to conduct investigations within the country?
Well, he first had the authorization to get into the country, which was a first, which they described themselves as historic this morning in their press release. I'm not sure of all of the details of what will be following up to this. They have more detail in the press release that they issued today, but we'll see what comes next. But they had the visit, which is already very important.
Okay, and a follow-up on the convoy, where almost 24 trucks got looted. Are those trucks lost, and what's happened to the drivers, and was anybody hurt?
I don't have all the granularity on all of these. My understanding is that the trucks today, the trucks from the convoy yesterday, so let me just get the exact numbers because I don't want to say. So some of them, 23 were lost to looting. I will ask WFP to get the status of the drivers of the trucks. Hopefully they were able to be rescued. 43 successfully reached their destination. But again, for us, what this incident, and we shared these details today to show that once again, this is really such a difficult environment in which our colleagues operate in Gaza to be able to not only bring assistance inside, but to bring it to its final destination and to bring it to people who really need it. Yes, Javier.
Stephanie, as you probably know, President-elect Donald Trump yesterday threatened to take control of the Panama Canal if certain conditions on transit fees and tariffs were not met. Since it's not a internal political matter, it's international, any comment of the Secretary General?
I will channel my inner Stefan for this one and just reprise some of the answers that he's been giving on this. We deal with one administration at a time, and we will not insert ourselves into comments being made right now. Yes, Deji.
Several questions. First, Syrian, the transitional government just announced a new foreign minister. Just wondering, has the Syrian mission here reached out to make an announcement, or have you contacted that? How would this play out?
I think they would need to contact the Syrian mission here, so no news.
But no news from you
No.
haven't received any news or information or letters from the Syrian mission?
I haven't seen any news, any letters come in this morning from the Syrian mission, which does not mean that there is not one that is making its way into the system, but nothing this morning.
Okay, second, a follow-up. This one, maybe you have to channel out your inner Stefan, too. It's been reported by multiple news outlets that the transitional team of President-elect Trump wants to quit WHO World Health Organization on day one. You deal with the current administration, but if U.S. quit WHO on day one of his inauguration, would the UN express its concern, and what's the position here?
All I'm going to say about this is that the World Health Organization is doing work that is very important for world's public health, and we continue to support, of course, all of its work.
So no response for
No.
this report? Okay.
Gabrielle,
Thanks, Stephanie. Happy holidays to you.
happy holidays to you too.
A question and a follow-up on Kamal Adwan Hospital. The Israeli militaries reportedly put explosives at the gates of the hospital. There are hundreds of patients inside desperately needing attention and care. As you mentioned in your briefing, you report direct gunfire on the hospital. My question is, the Israelis are saying that the hospital must be evacuated and shut down, does the Secretary General think that the hospital staff should evacuate and shut down the hospital?
So, as Dr. Tedros said in his tweet over the weekend, we've seen this hospital has been facing attacks for a long time. We really call on all parties to uphold their obligations under international humanitarian law. Hospitals really must be protected.
And when you say all parties, who do you mean?
I mean, everyone.
But fair enough.
No, but it does include Israelis, obviously.
And last part is, it's an obvious, Israel's actions against Kamal Adwan Hospital are an obvious flagrant breach of international humanitarian law. The hospital director is calling on the international community to do whatever it can to stop this aggression. What can the Secretary General and the UN, from his position, do to try to stop this?
From here, we continue to say how concerned we are, and we continue to call for full respect of international humanitarian law. It's pretty clear that hospitals need to be protected, and we continue to call for that. Yes, Daji.
Any news from the UN on the engagement of the possible ceasefire deal in Gaza?
Nothing beyond what you and your colleagues have been reporting. We continue to call, of course, for a ceasefire, but nothing.
And a
new
release
from
of
here.
hostage?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Do we have any more questions? All right, thank you very much.
Online?
Oh, sorry,
Stephanie?
sorry, I
That's
didn't see
okay.
you.
I think Iftikhar had one as well.
Hold on.
So,
Go ahead, Mike.
thank you, Stephanie. I hope you're doing well. A few questions. Number one, the IDF had reported late last week, Thursday or Friday, that it had started implementing new humanitarian routes through Gaza, and the looting had actually gone down for at least a brief amount of time before it's obviously picked up again with your announcement today. Was there some success over the last, I don't know, week or so in limiting the looting through those new routes? And if so, what changed yesterday?
I think if you look at the note that I read, Mike, hold on, let me just, because I have the number. This was the 5th time that WFP had used this route as of yesterday. And what changed yesterday was that there was a serious security incident, as I described.
Had it been getting better over the last week in terms of the containment of the looting? Had the numbers actually gone down, as the IDF says?
I would not be able to provide you with a full overview of whether this had gone down for the entire Gaza Strip, but on that route, you see, yesterday was the 5th time that that WFP had been able to use it.
Okay. Secondly, in terms of Jenin, the UNRWA had put out a statement that there were Palestinian armed actors that had infiltrated there and taken control. Obviously, it's an ongoing situation. Who are these Palestinian armed actors? Can the UN actually name them?
I would have to get back to you on that, Mike.
Okay. And last question for you. So that statement from UNRWA on those Palestinian armed actors, it took 4 days for them to release that statement acknowledging that the Jenin community camp, whatever it's called, had been taken control of by these armed actors, terrorists, what have you. Israeli incursions into UNRWA facilities are usually reported on in about 30 seconds. Is there some specific reason UNRWA waited 4 days to acknowledge that one of its camps had been taken over by armed actors?
I'll refer you to UNRWA on that, Mike.
Okay. Happy holidays, Stephanie.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. All right. Happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas.